Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It has been a little bit of time since my last video where I actually created a video just for the channel itself, but I wanted to basically just go through my Pickems, something a little bit simplistic, something just to build up into Tokyo, which is going to be coming up over the next couple of days. I'm going to be recording this Friday evening, so if you're seeing this on Saturday, obviously if anything has happened in the last day, maybe my predictions will have changed at least a little bit, but for now, I think let's just keep things fairly straightforward. I'm going to just show you my Pickems going into things. Now, to start off, obviously I have sort of clicked through some of these, but these are not my choices. We have NRG facing off against Na'Vi. Now, my thought process here is that we know that NRG are a sort of very prep-heavy side. They're a roster that I think we can all agree really work well when they have a lot of tape to go on. And I actually think that's going to benefit Na'Vi a little bit. I think that's one of those matchups where I kind of look at it and go, okay, Na'Vi have been throwing in more comps than anybody else. They've been trying a lot of different stuff. And I will say maybe looking a little bit more shaky than what we've seen from them in the past, but that actually gives me a little bit more faith going into the event. I think that they're going to come out a little bit nasty. They're going to, I think, do some damage in those initial matchups. And as I said, I think the Finesse, fantastic IGL, but one of the things I really rate him for is coming up with stuff after he's seen what team's going to do. So I think if there's a rematch, I'll definitely favor NRG. But in this case, my EMEA bias might be shining through a little bit. I'm going to go with Na'Vi. Now, on the other side, the opening matchup between T1 and Edward, it's a little bit of a difficult one, because I'm not going to claim to have watched a lot of the Chinese side of Valorant, but I also think at the moment, things are probably going to end up being a little bit top-heavy. Like, EDG are a team that I think have proven to be pretty decent. I don't think that they're necessarily going to be a contender just yet, but I think players like Kang have proven that he's a fantastic player, and we've seen the step up of some of the others within the roster. However, I kind of want to look at the other side of things, because that's what sort of impressed me is T1, okay, have they been able to beat the likes of PaperX and DRX? No. Like, they haven't been able to beat what I would say are the top two within Pacific right now, but everybody else, other than the one match they have versus Genji early in the season, they've been able to beat in some cases quite easily, and I've been impressed with the sort of depth within the roster. I think that Sire Player has proven to be one of the best duelists within the entirety of Pacific. I think him going back to Korea has been huge for Korea, or huge for the team rather than necessarily for him. I think he would have thrived if he'd stayed in North America as well. I think Ban showing his sort of like depth within Agent Pool and playing like different roles, like his Jet on Fracture is fantastic, super aggressive. And then you have players like Zeta and Munchkin, who I think both are very, very good within their roles. So I think although this match might be a little bit closer than some may expect, I'm gonna edge it over to T1. I think that they'll take that victory. I don't know if it will necessarily be enough for them to make it out of this group, because they've got a fairly tough group, but I'm going to lean in their direction. I think that they're going to take this one. On the lower bracket side, I think no matter who goes down to the lower bracket from this top matchup, I think it's going to be a victory for them. Like, I don't see either NRG or Na'Vi losing to Edward, or T1 for that matter. I think they should be able to beat those two teams, and I think that does basically mean we're going to get a lower bracket run with Na'Vi going through in the top, and then NRG closing things out with that bottom side of the bracket. I would be surprised if they aren't the two teams. As said, we've seen in the past that Edward definitely have a little bit of upset potential, and I think that T1 facing off against both Na'Vi and NRG, I think could be a really interesting matchup, because I think T1, as said, they've got a lot of depth within their roster. I think structurally they're pretty decent. I just don't know if they have enough to take those two teams, because I see both of those teams as potential contenders no matter what form they're in. I know that sounds weird, but like Na'Vi, even going back to when they struggled to like qualify for things under FPX, they were always a threat. They were always fearsome, and when they finally managed to get that team to a LAN event, they won it. So I'm never going to doubt Na'Vi and NRG, any team that has Finesse at the helm, a team with Ardis in it. Like, you always have to believe in that roster, and I think Crashies has proven time and time again that he is like a top 20 player through and through. So I would say those are my two teams making it out of that side of the bracket. Then we go down onto the other side. Now, I think this first game, like, come on. I think if anybody's not choosing DRX to go through that one, they've been they've been smoking something. I would be absolutely gobsmacked. Again, I'm not going to pretend that I've watched a crazy amount of the Chinese league, but I think DRX up against any team from China, I would have them over. I do think that they've been a little bit weird with their roster at times, like sort of switching players in and out, and it not necessarily being as successful as they'd like. Like Zest coming in for the last few games in the season was a little bit weird. I don't know if that was just because they didn't like the way things were structurally with Foxy9, but I would say Foxy9 has proven himself to be a fantastic individual, or maybe it's just that they feel like they lack some of the depth elsewhere, and especially when you have someone like Buzz, you know that you can throw him in on any role. Marco's still, in my opinion, the best controller in the world. I don't really think there's anybody matching up to him in my eyes at this point. Like a few names you could throw around here and there, but I don't think they're quite on Marco's level yet. And again, you've got fantastic coaches like Termi and Glow at the back end of that. So even if things might have been a little bit more shaky than they'd like with a loss to Paper X, I don't think that's going to be too much harm for them going forward into this one. And again, I feel like you have to kind of expect Attacking Soul Esports to come in as the weakest team in the tournament. I'd be surprised otherwise. The next game, though, is an interesting one. Because I was sat there, like, when we thought that it was going to be Foot facing off against a team without Demon 1, I was like, okay, Foot take that all day long. I don't really even think it would be that competitive. I think Foot have proven themselves to be a fantastic team, even, like, taking down some of the top teams like Na'Vi at this point. So I think they're a very, very strong roster. But adding in that equation of Demon 1, someone who literally lit up the Americas League, it is difficult to actually put this one through. In fact, I think this is probably, I guess you could argue NRG versus Na'Vi is a pretty, like, 50-50 game, but I would say this is the most 50-50 game for me. I have a little bit more faith in Foot. I think that they've proven themselves to be a really confident team on that sort of, like, against anyone. I guess that's the way I put it. Against absolutely anyone. I think that even though Demon 1 is a fantastic duelist, for me, Kiwi is one of the best in the world right now. I think he's putting up decent numbers on pretty much every single duelist he plays. I think he's shown depth in his gameplay, be it playing the rifles, the operator, the knives, whatever you throw at him. So I'm going to lean it in that direction. And the other reason as well is, like, I think that maybe him and Demon 1 could play close, but I just have more faith in the depth of this Foot roster. I think Krax has proven himself to be unbelievable in just, like, multi-frag scenarios. Mr. Farlin putting up numbers at a captain we don't even need to talk about, like, so good at his role. Now, again, it's arguable that I've watched a lot more EMEA than I have Americas just because of time zone, so that's going to be why my favor is there, because I just have a lot of faith in Foot right now, and I would say that they come in as probably the team I'd expect to make it through that group. The problem is, I think we're going to get a rematch. Because I think that you have to do that. Even though DRX haven't looked their best, I think you have to put them through. I think it would be mind-blowing if they didn't go through first. And they are the king of groups. They've always been the king of the group stage. So then we get to here, because again, I just don't think Attacking Soul are going to be able to beat anyone. I would say maybe there's, like, some people out there who are going to, like, have a punt on that, and I think that there will be a time where we get surprised by Chinese Valorant and things sort of flip on their head and ultimately they dominate. I think that's a possible future that hasn't really been impossible in things like CSGO, because there just wasn't really that path through. It was basically just Tai Lu, and they didn't have a lot of competition there. So I think it's possible, and especially with the game, like, being further released, I still don't really know if it's properly released. It's very confusing. I'm not keeping up on whether or not the game is properly released, or however it is, but once it gets more popularized, I think that's going to happen. I don't think we're there yet. And now we get into my sort of catch-22. Because I always sit there and I look at it and I go, if there's a rematch in a tournament, I always flip the bracket. I always flip it and go, okay, the team that won the first time is not going to win the second time, because the other team will have learnt, adapted, maybe changed the map pool, and it'll make things a lot more difficult. I also have a lot of faith in Potter as a coach, because I think she's fantastic. I got to work with her on analyst desks in the past, and when Potter is in the zone, Potter is in the zone. Like, she is someone who will just analyze the shit out of a game and find every little mistake and every little flaw. So everything, it's sort of leaning that I should go with EG here, And yet I still feel like I'm going to pick Foot, which, again, my previous points still stand. Like, I think they're a fantastic roster in terms of depth. I also think that teams have actually found it very difficult to adapt to them, because in terms of like their map pool, for example, they have a few maps they're incredibly good at, and a lot of the time teams can try and avoid like one or two of them. But for example, their Lotus, up until they played the likes of Fnatic and Na'Vi, Liquid, it was pretty much sublime. They've been fairly willing to play Pearl at times. Okay, they definitely have some weaknesses in maps like Fracture, but then they smash Na'Vi on it. So it's like they have proved that they can work and adapt and improve in a very short amount of time. So my EMEA bias is gonna shine through, and I'm gonna pick Foot. So there you go. These are the Pickems I'm sticking with. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know how confident I am in them, and that's the thing that makes it so much more difficult. Is I genuinely do feel like that in each group there's 3 teams. Now, again, I do think that Edward Gaming have more of a chance to do damage. Like maybe they'll take T1 down. Like maybe that'll be the shock within that group. I'd be very surprised if Na'Vi and NRG don't get through. Like those are the 2 teams that I just have utmost faith in. Very experienced in-game leaders, a very experienced core of players when it gets to international events. And also, I do feel like there's always been a thing with Na'Vi, like once they qualify, the rest doesn't really matter. So I feel like they're going to come in much stronger than what we've seen from them, and their depth of talent is just absurd. Like we look at Fnatic and we sort of talk about how it's unfair, but you think about the likes of Sagetsu, Xiao, Zipan all being on the same team, and then you've got the likes of CNED in there as well. Like I just don't feel like that team can do badly, and the same on the other side of things. Like you've got championship winners in there, so that is going to be my pick and prediction. Obviously, I would love to know what you guys have put. If there's any surprises, do you believe in Chinese Valorant so soon? Are you going to be an early adopter? Do you think that there's going to be some surprises there? Why am I an idiot for not choosing EG? As said, I think especially in that lower bracket, I've kind of gone against my own rules to pick Foot. But look, the guys have given me... I now have shorts, a signed shirt, a jacket, and a jumper. If I don't pick them at this point, I feel like I'm never going to be given anything from them ever again. And yeah, EG have not given me anything. So, you know, I'm also talking about bribery. But either way, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that I have helped you with your pick'ems, and please don't follow my lead, because that is a very dangerous precedent to set. And also, well, I think by now it should have been announced, I'm going to be uploading this on Saturday, so it's probably Saturday right now, and on Sunday morning I will be watch partying the game. So if you want to head over, I'll put my Twitch link in the description. It is, of course, just Tombizz if you just want to search it. And I'm going to do a watch party for the entirety of Tokyo. So that'll be from like 3:40 a.m. my time. So if you are from Asia and it's a little bit earlier, or if you want to join me halfway through the day from EMEA, make sure you come and chill out. I'm definitely going to need that extra little boost from people chilling. And of course, make sure you subscribe. There's going to be different clips and stuff coming from different streams, maybe some reaction content. And I hope to get back into doing some interviews in the future. So let me know what you think of the video. Let me know what you think of the pick'ems, and I'll see you again soon.